Hey YouTube, Joe Boy here. So today I want to talk about Big Mom's 3 strongest sweet commanders. Now, in the recent chapters it was revealed that Big Mom does in fact have 3 commanders who seem to have pretty much roughly equal standing to Kaido's 3 calamities. In addition to this, there was also originally 4 sweet commanders, but the 4th one was defeated by Orouge sometime in the past. And so we've already gotten to meet one of Big Mom's sweet commanders, that being Charlotte Cracker, owner of the Biscuit Fruit, who was so strong that really Luffy had to go to great lengths in order to avoid sustaining an incredible amount of damage during that fight so that he could continue forward in Whole Cake Island and fight other opponents. That battle lasted 11 hours, and the other 2 sweet commanders are guaranteed to be just as strong as Cracker, if not stronger. So the question is who are these other 2 sweet commanders and what are their powers? And so before I actually get into the topic of this video, I do want to mention that I did not come up with this idea. I didn't notice this connection. It was actually mentioned to me in my comment section by a poster. And so I can't actually find anyone else who's been talking about this whatsoever. No videos about it and no threads dedicated to the topic. So I felt that this is an idea worthy of sharing with you guys. And so also, addition to this, I couldn't actually find the original comment that actually told me this in the first place, so my apologies to that person. But this theory is almost spoiler level. I believe I know the answer to who the 2 other sweet commanders are and what their abilities are. And so I think that this video will honestly blow your mind if you haven't heard the idea. So without further ado, let's just get right into this. So firstly guys, Oda is just a master of foreshadowing. He can drop those little hints and they would have no meaning to us at the time that we read them, and then later on we find out that that was the biggest clue leading us to the possible truth after the fact. And so in this case, I think this is true again, which is that Oda has been highlighting certain Big Mom subordinates repeatedly throughout the Whole Cake Island arc. And it wasn't until recently that we could have connect these dots and led us to who the Yonko commanders are. But you'll notice a couple names thrown around a lot if you reread the Whole Cake Island arc. First of all, the Minister of Biscuits came up a bunch before we ended up meeting Cracker. And that's interesting because Cracker was the Minister of Biscuits, also one of the 3 sweet commanders with the Biscuit Fruit. Another name that was thrown around a lot was the Minister of Candy, who was later revealed to be Perospero, who is not yet confirmed as a Big Mom sweet commander, but has the general appearance and air of somebody who is extremely overpowered. And funnily enough, when we get to meet him, he is the Candy Minister with the Lickety Fruit, or the Lick Fruit, which allows him to turn people in some way into candy. This is also another theory, but it seems highly supported by the one line of dialogue that we have with Perospero and his threat to Caesar, threatening that he will turn him into a candy man. So again, just like Cracker, who is the Biscuit Minister with the Biscuit Fruit, one of the sweet commanders, we have Perospero, the Candy Minister with the ability to turn people into candy. So I hope you guys can see the trend forming. Now, are there any other ministers or any other Big Mom subordinates that have been specifically named but really not yet showcased in the story specifically? And there is one more, and that is the Minister of Nuts. And here we have, I believe, the 3rd sweet commander of the Big Mom Pirates. And so given the correlation that we have so far with our perceived people who are the sweet commanders, Cracker with the Biscuit Fruit, known as the Minister of Biscuits, Perospero with the Lick Fruit, able to turn people into candy, who is the Minister of Candy, then we can get the Devil Fruit ability in some way of the Minister of Nuts, just based on his name alone. But I don't want to get too specific into what I think his powers are, because there's a lot of directions potentially Oda could take him, just given the fact that there's a lot of ways to use Devil Fruit powers. We have Charlotte Cracker, who's able to produce and manipulate endless amounts of biscuit. He's able to turn his surroundings seemingly into biscuit. And then, of course, Perospero isn't actually a candy man necessarily. He can just turn things into candy, similar to Sugar from back in the Dressrosa arc, something along those lines. So I don't want to get too specific, but I want to mention a couple things, which is that it seems as though the Sweet Commanders, the ministers that are the strongest Big Mom subordinates, play a vital role in maintaining Whole Cake Island and Totlin. We can see in an offhand comment from Peckham's that the pillars of buildings are made by the Minister of Biscuits. This makes sense because Cracker can produce and manipulate endless amounts of biscuit. We also learn that the Minister of Candy allows for the windows to exist on Chocolate Town. And so this makes sense as well. Basically, I think we're supposed to be led to believe that he licks some person or some object and then transforms them into some form of candy, which is, I would assume, his choice. And so he could lick someone or something and turn them into a thin, see-through transparent candy, which would then be used as windows. Then going into the Minister of Nuts, there was somebody who wanted the Minister of Nuts to provide nuts to help Big Mom, and they were trying to bake the croquembouche in order to relieve her of her sickness. So they expected to receive nuts from the Minister of Nuts, which highly suggests that in some way the Minister of Nuts can produce these nuts out of thin air, i.e. his devil fruit allows him to produce nuts. The other thing that I want to mention is that if you're trying to create a nut devil fruit, then I think the first quality of a nut that you would definitely use in the devil fruit's power is the fact that nuts, generally speaking, are considered to be extremely hard. There's a popular expression, a tough nut to crack. So although there are other properties of nuts that you could potentially speculate on and then could end up being part of the Minister of Nuts' devil fruit ability, I believe this would be the focal point behind all of the powers and fighting style of the Minister of Nuts. So guys, I'm honestly pretty sure that the third Sweet Commander is the Minister of Nuts. But what about the fourth Sweet Commander? The one who is no longer a Sweet Commander. It seems as though they were demoted after losing to Arouge. Or at least it seems that he was either demoted or straight up killed. Now I really don't want to believe this for various reasons, but it's definitely possible that the fourth Sweet Commander is now dead. And so this one is a lot harder to pin down. And honestly, there's a possibility it isn't a minister at all, because so far it seems implied that the ministers of Totlin are all male. But of course, Big Mom has both sons and daughters, and some of her daughters are really powerful. Specifically, Madame Brûlée is not a minister of any territory, she's just Madame Brûlée. But she's still strong enough to be sent to combat Luffy in the Seducing Woods. So there's always the possibility that this fourth Yonko commander was originally a female. And if this is true, then I don't think that there are any obvious hints as to who it could be or what their powers are. But what if it is a minister? There's another clue as well that I didn't mention up until this point, which is very strong and supports the idea that potentially the three Sweet Commanders are in fact the ministers of candy, biscuits, and nuts, which is that Pudding provided a map for the Straw Hats to follow, the easiest way to reach Whole Cake Island that only the siblings know. And on this map, the three islands that were closest to Whole Cake Island, the main island, are in fact the island Candy, Biscuit, and Nuts. And honestly, I think that in general, it would make sense for the strongest Big Mom subordinates, the strongest of the Big Mom pirates, would occupy islands closest to Whole Cake Island. However, these aren't the only islands that are shown on Pudding's map. There's a couple others as well. There's three actually. One was the island that they were currently at, Cocoa Island, or Island of Chocolate. Now, I don't think that this was an island of any of the Sweet Commanders, mainly because there is no mention of the Chocolate Chancellor yet in the story, outside of them being on his island. So in terms of foreshadowing, I think that Oda had to include this island on the map just because that's where they were. But these other islands that he chose to include on the map could potentially have foreshadowing significance, with their ministers being extremely powerful Big Mom subordinates. So I don't think that this is the island of the Sweet Commander, but we have two others. Both could be potentially important, but only one of which could have been the fourth Sweet Commander. And we have the islands of Cheese and the island of Jam. So neither the Minister of Cheese nor the Minister of Jam has been specifically mentioned in the story like Nuts, Biscuit, and Candy. However, there is one offhand mention of them stopping and wanting to stop at the island of Jam, which makes me want to believe that the fourth Sweet Commander was in fact the Minister of Jam, more so than the Minister of Candy or the island of Candy, which was only mentioned on this map, and that is it. But as I said, the connection here is far less strong than the idea that the Minister of Nuts is the third Sweet Commander. But I just wanted to throw that out there as a potential idea, because the fact that these islands are mentioned on the map, and then the foreshadowing significance of the islands of Nuts, Biscuit, and Candy makes me want to believe that the island of Cheese and or Jam could also be incredibly important. But yeah guys, that's all I got for this video. Remember that I was not the one to come up with this idea. I saw this posted in a comment and then just added a bunch of details and evidence in my own way of explaining it. But let me know what you think of the video. Let me know if you agree or if you disagree. Remember, I actually think that this is spoiler level, so if you don't think that it's spoiler level, feel free to disagree with me and explain why. Like the video if you liked the video. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed, and as always, dudes, have a wonderful day.